The Passion Translation, chapter 8. After he came down from teaching on the hillside, massive crowds began following him. Jesus. Suddenly a leper walked up to Jesus and threw himself down before him in worship and said, "Lord, you have the power to heal me, if you really want to." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the leper and said, "Of course I want to heal you. Be healed." And instantly all signs of leprosy disappeared. Then Jesus said to him, "Don't speak to anyone, but go at once and find a priest and show him what has happened to you. Make sure to take the offering Moses commanded so they can certify healing." When Jesus entered the village of Capernaum, a captain in the Roman army approached him asking for a miracle. "Lord," he said, "I have a son who is lying in my house, paralyzed and suffering terribly." Jesus responded, "I'll go with you and heal him." But the Roman officer interjected, "Lord, who am I to have you come to my house? I understand your authority, for I too am a man who walks under authority and have authority over my soldiers who serve under me. I can tell one to go and he'll go, and another to come and he'll come. I order my servants and they'll do as I ask. So I know that all you need to do is stand here and command healing over my son, and he will be instantly healed." Jesus was astonished when he heard this, and he said to those who were following him, "He has greater faith than anyone I've encountered in Israel." Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Multitudes of non-Jewish people will stream from the east and the west to enter into the banqueting feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the heavenly kingdom. But many Israelites born to be heirs of the kingdom will be turned away and banished into darkness, where there will be bitter weeping and unbearable anguish. And then Jesus turned to the Roman officer and said, "Go home. All that you've believed for will be done for you." And his son was healed that very moment. Then Jesus went into Peter's home and found Peter's mother-in-law in bed, ridden, severely ill with a fever. Then that moment Jesus touched her. The moment Jesus touched her hand, she was healed. Immediately she got up and began to make dinner for them. I get her. That evening, the people brought to him many who were demonized, and by Jesus only speaking a word of healing over them, they were totally set free from their torment. And everyone who was sick received their healing. In doing this, Jesus fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. He put upon himself our weaknesses, and he carried away our diseases and made us well. At the sight of large crowds gathering around him, Jesus gave orders to his disciples to get ready to sail back over to the other side of the lake. Just then, a religious scholar approached him and said, "Teacher, I'll follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no true home in this world." And then another man spoke up and said, "Lord, I'll follow you, but first I must take care of my aged father and bury him when he dies." But Jesus said to him, "Now is the time to follow me, and let those who are dead bury their own dead." They all got into a boat and began to cross over to the other side of the lake. And Jesus, exhausted, fell asleep. Suddenly, a violent storm developed with waves so high the boat was about to be swamped. Yet Jesus continued to sleep soundly. The disciples woke him up saying, "Save us, Lord, we're gonna die." But Jesus reprimanded them. Why are you gripped with fear? Where is your faith? Then he stood up and rebuked the storm and said, be still. And instantly it became perfectly calm. The disciples were astonished by this miracle and said to one another, who is this man? Even the wind and waves obey his word. When they arrived on the other side of the lake in the region of the Gadarenes, two demonized men confronted Jesus. They lived among the tombs of the cemetery and were considered so extremely violent that no one felt safe passing through that area. The demons screamed at Jesus, shouting, Son of God, what do you want with us? Leave us alone. Have you come to torment us before the appointed time? There was a large herd of pigs feeding nearby, so the demons pleaded, if you cast us out, send us into that herd of pigs. Jesus commanded, then go. And at once the demons came out of the men and went into the pigs. Then the entire herd of crazed pigs stampeded down the steep slope and fell into the water and drowned. The men who were herding the pigs fled to the nearby town and informed the people of all that had happened to the demonized men. Then everyone from the town went out to confront Jesus and urge him to go away and leave them alone. The book of Matthew is written with the Jewish people in mind. So you'll notice that as we're reading through, a lot of what's in this book, it refers back to the Old Testament. It refers to like Jewish law, to the Israel, to the law in Israel, to the order of things that happened in Israel. So if you've read any of the Old Testament, it will really make sense to you. And if not, bear with Matthew until we get on to Mark, Luke, and John, because Matthew was written with like a Jewish flavor. So those of us who are not Jewish and are listening to this, we're like, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. But if you were Jewish, you would get that. And then secondly, but it's okay. You don't have to be Jewish to get it. you can just trust in what this word is saying. And that leads me to the second thing, which is some of this stuff is hard. Like some of this stuff is hard, you know, demons coming out of people and going into pigs and the pigs drowning. You know, Jesus telling the storm, shut up and sit down, and it does. This is real stuff that really happened. And even some of it is you know, like the Roman officer. Jesus just said, go on home, what you asked is done. And the guy goes home and his kid's healed. Like, and the child was healed at the moment Jesus said that. So, you know, these things are not fables. These things are not folklore. These things are history. Happened in front of witnesses. And so join me in embracing the difficulty of some of these words and how they make you think, and they make you be like, what? Say that. Wrestle with it. That's good. That's how the learning happens. That's how the receiving happens. Some of these words, I'm like, wow, that's good. And so if that's how you feel, chill. That's how I feel too. Okay, that is the end of chapter 8, Matthew, the Passion Translation.